Former President Donald Trump made many campaign promises on his way back to the White House, including a warning to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate President Joe Biden and his family. After the election results on Super Tuesday, March 5, Mr. Trump seemed to have firmly grasped the Republican nomination in the presidential election next November. CNN assesses that Mr. Trump's chances of returning to power are relatively significant because the support rate for U.S. President Joe Biden is low. To attract voters, Mr. Trump made a number of campaign promises such as building 10 new cities, appointing a special prosecutor to investigate President Joe Biden and his family, as well as opening largest domestic deportation campaign in American history. Foreign policy. Mr. Trump often criticizes NATO member countries. At a campaign event in South Carolina last month, Mr. Trump said he would not implement the bloc's collective defense clause and would encourage Russia to do whatever they want with any member who does not comply. Into defense spending obligations. The former president also previously pledged to quickly end the war in Ukraine, although he did not elaborate on how to do it. As soon as I'm elected president, I will resolve the terrible conflict between Russia and Ukraine, Mr. Trump said at a campaign event in New Hampshire last year. On another occasion, Mr. Trump also asserted that it would take no more than a day to resolve the war if elected. Immigration. Mr. Trump has made immigration and border security a central issue in his election campaign, and successfully pressured Republicans to reject a major border deal last month. In a Des Moines Register op-ed in January, Trump announced he would use the Hostile Alien Act to remove people identified or suspected of being gang members, drug traffickers, or drug gangs from America. In a video posted on the social network Truth Social at the end of February before his recent border visit, Mr. Trump also promised to carry out the largest domestic deportation campaign in American history. Dealing with drug gangs. The former president also considered fighting drug gangs a top priority in his second term. In his election announcement in November 2022, Mr. Trump said he would ask Congress to pass a law to ensure that drug smugglers and human traffickers could receive the death penalty for cruel acts. Mr. Trump also vowed to eradicate drug gangs by imposing a maritime blockade on the gangs, cutting off the gangs' ability to access the global financial system, and using force. Special forces to hunt down gang leaders. Education. In his election video in September 2023, Mr. Trump announced his plan to close the U.S. Department of Education to return educational work to the states. We want them to take on the job of educating our children, because they will do a much better job, he said. The former president also promised to return responsibility to parents and give them the final say in education. In his campaign video in January 2023, the former president said he would prioritize funding schools that allow parents to elect principals, abolish the tenure system for K-12 teachers, and use a salary system. Work efficiency to promote the quality of teaching, and reduce the number of management positions in schools. Healthcare. Last November, Mr. Trump promised to replace the Affordable Care Act, commonly known as Obamacare, in a series of posts on Truth Social. Mr. Trump tried to do this in 2017 but failed. Getting much better health care than Obamacare for the American people will be a top priority for the Trump administration, he said. Transgender. I will rescind all of Mr. Biden's policies promoting chemical castration and genital mutilation of our youth, and ask Congress to send me a bill banning genital mutilation for signature, children's genitals in all 50 states, Mr. Trump said last March. Genital dissection is the term Mr. Trump uses to refer to gender affirmation measures that help a person change their physical appearance or sexual characteristics to match their gender identity. Them including hormone therapy and gender reassignment surgery. Mr. Trump added that he will order federal officials to cut programs promoting gender transition, as well as ask Congress to stop using federal funds to pay for gender surgery costs. Judicial system. Mr. Trump promised to take advantage of the U.S. Department of Justice to investigate critics and former allies. I will appoint a real special prosecutor to investigate Mr. Joe Biden and the entire Biden crime family, Mr. Trump said in June 2023. Mr. Trump said in a campaign video last year that he would restore a 2020 executive order aimed at removing rogue officials and proposed a constitutional amendment to adjust term limits for members. Congress. In a September 2023 speech in Washington, D.C., Mr. Trump also announced that he would appoint a specialized team to review the criminal convictions of people who he said had been treated unfairly by the Biden administration. This move could lead to the possibility of amnesty for many people convicted in connection with the January 6, 2021 riot. New cities and flying cars. In many campaign videos, Mr. Trump said he would build free cities to reopen the border, ignite the imagination of Americans and bring hundreds of thousands of young people and others, for all hardworking families, a new opportunity to become homeowners and, in fact, the American dream. According to Mr. Trump's plan, the federal government will promote the construction of 10 new cities on undeveloped federal land. He said these cities will help American manufacturing recover, bringing economic opportunity, new industries, and affordable living. Tram. Mr. Trump has promised to repeal the Environmental Protection Agency's new regulations on auto emission standards. If effective, the regulations could require 2/3 of cars sold in the U.S. by 2032 to be electric. The former president once said that Mr. Biden's electric vehicle policies marked the death of the American auto industry. Energy. Mr. Trump promised to reduce energy prices by increasing domestic production. "We're going to drill and drill right away," Mr. Trump told a crowd of supporters in Des Moines, Iowa, in January. At a rally in South Carolina in February, he pledged to lift restrictions on U.S. natural gas exports. Commerce. Also at the march in South Carolina, Mr. Trump pledged to impose tough sanctions on China and other countries that abuse trade. According to the former president's Trump reciprocal trade bill, he said that if other countries impose tariffs on the U.S., the country will immediately respond with similar tariffs. Within the framework of the strategy to bring jobs back to the U.S., Mr. Trump also promised to continue implementing the America First policy if elected, such as establishing a common basic tax rate for most foreign goods. His proposal also includes a 4-year plan to phase out all essential imports from China, as well as prevent Chinese investment in the United States and stop American companies' investments in the United States. China. Mr. Trump said in February that he would consider imposing tariffs of up to 60% on all Chinese imports if re-elected.